Hello, Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns. Your show is just so wonderful to watch, but I feel like I need to cut it up a bit.
What is up, everybody? It's your boy Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, and today we are going to be reviewing Spider-Man
Across
the Spider-Verse. I just saw it last night at the time of recording. I went festive for this a little, and yeah, what a great movie. I'll give my rating at the end, but man, how they ended it and what's coming next, and some surprises in there. A lot of great stuff, man, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I only saw the first one the other day, actually. Don't judge me. I had no desire to see it, but I finally got around to it, and it was well worth it. But yeah, this will be a spoiler review. I will be spoiling everything. So if you haven't seen the movie, click off because you don't want to be spoiled. With that being said, let's dive right in. We start off with a recap from the first Spider-Man animated movie, and it's being voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who plays Gwen Stacy. We see Gwen is in a band, punk rock. And then we go forward a little and we see Gwen waiting for Peter at the dance. Now this is pre-Miles, pre-everything. Peter no-shows, of course. And then she finds Peter dead, or dying, but then eventually he dies. They were best friends and she was upset. But of course, when she finds him, the captain, aka her father, sees that and thinks Spider-Woman is the murderer. So an all-out manhunt or woman hunt starts for Spider-Woman. So then we see Gwen's dad is talking to her, and then we see the picture of Miles and Gwen from the past, so a nice little tie in there. The dad has to go because a building is being attacked and they think Spider-Woman's gonna show up, and they're like, this is our chance, this is when we're gonna get her. Then they're waiting, and then pew pew, the web. She pops down, she goes, were you looking for me? Just messes with him. And then Gwen heads into the building to fight the Vulture, who took over the Guggenheimen, because, yeah, why not? Vulture has the upper hand, of course, and then here comes Spider-Man 2099, voiced by Oscar Isaac, who showed up in the after credits of the first one. He plays a very major role in this movie. Then shows up another Spider-Woman from another universe to help out Gwen. So the amount of chaos from this building and the Vulture has caused the NYPD chopper to go down. But Gwen and everybody else save everybody in the chopper before everything gets out of hand. Then Gwen is just standing there, and here comes Captain Stacy, Gwen's dad, saying, put your hands up, and they try and talk, and she eventually unmasks, shows herself, and her dad is shocked. He's like, they talk a little, he's like, I have to take you in. And she's like, I didn't murder Peter. And, that's a running theme here too. But then as he's about to take her, Spider-Man 2099 puts him in like a bubble. He can't get out. And they go to the other universe. And Gwen, before she steps in, she ponders what's next. And that's a running theme here too, that vortex. And that happened all before the credits rolled. So we finally get to Brooklyn, modern day. It's about a year and a half after the events of the first movie. But in reality, it's been 5 years in real life. But we see Miles' parents waiting on a college meeting with the counselor. Miles is very late. We see a man, who ends up being the Spot, try to rob an ATM. Not trying to rob anything else, he just wants the money. But then Miles saves the day, takes him out. But then they keep fighting, and that makes Miles late for the meeting. And Miles eventually comes in, and they're talking, and Miles has a very bright future. The mom is mad. He only got a B in Spanish, and then she starts speaking Spanish to him. And Miles wants to go to Princeton. But the mother says, no, that's too far. And he says, I gotta get out of my comfort zone if I want to tackle big things in my life. And then a few one-liners from Miles' dad, who is hilarious in this movie. And as Miles is leaving the meeting, another fight breaks out between him and the Spot. And the dad tries to get involved too, and the dad, of course, has no idea that Miles is Spider-Man. So Miles is trying to, put a deeper voice on. Then Miles' dad vents to Spider-Man about his boy, and of course, Spider-Man is trying to say, oh, he's a great kid, you should lighten up on him. And then the Spot goes to another universe, and our first cameo of the movie. The Spot ends up in the same universe as Eddie Brock Venom. We see Mrs. Chen from the Venom movies as a cameo, and they talk for a little, and I was like, whoa! I was like, that was an awesome cameo. We have a couple awesome cameos, which we will get into, but that was cool. Then we see Lego Spider-Man. There's a lot of moving parts in this movie, but it's still good. And then we go to the party where Miles' dad is getting promoted. He's going to be captain, another major theme here. And Miles is late and gets grounded for 2 months. So Gwen eventually goes through the portal and sees Miles. They hug. They swing through town together. They're having a nice moment looking over the city. Gwen says, every time Gwen Stacy falls for Peter Parker or Spider-Man, it does not end well. And think about what would happen with Andrew Garfield and Gwen Stacy. Or Emma Stone. Yeah, and then eventually Miles' parents see them, and Miles' parents embarrass them. And he's like, no, why? So Miles was grounded, but the mom says, go after her, you know? So Miles goes after Gwen and realizes she's acting pretty shady. And then we realize Gwen is working with the not so good guys. Well, they think they're the good guys, but... And then she was the reason the Spot got out and became unstoppable. And then Gwen eventually walks through that portal because she's a wanted woman for the murder of Peter Parker. She walks through that portal to get away. Then we go to India and we see another Spider-Man from another universe. And who is this Spider-Man voiced by? Dopinder from Deadpool 1 and 2 and 3, the taxi driver. And I was like, I know that voice anywhere. And Spider-Man has hair in that universe on the outside of the mask. Yeah, weird. Very weird. But hey. They try and save the town, and eventually they do. And then we finally meet Hobie, who Gwen mentioned earlier in this movie. And Hobie's like this really cool, laid-back Spider-Man, and you could tell Miles is just a little jealous. And then we see the Spot has upgraded and is trying to destroy India. Like I said, the gang saves the day. They go back to headquarters, and you see the whole Spider Society. Every different Spider-Man. And cameo number 2 incoming. And it's almost like they did this on purpose, where it was like, they just walked right by him. They walk by Uncle Aaron in the MCU, played by Donald Glover, and I was like, whoa! I looked at my buddy Shafir, and I'm like, alright, that's cool. Like, that was a sick cameo. So finally, Miguel and Miles meet face to face. Miguel is this serious Spider-Man, no business, and we find out why later on. And then we see Peter from the 2018 film. He has a kid now, and he's still hilarious as ever. And then we see the Spider-Verse, which Miguel is like, that's a really stupid name, but then Miguel says another name, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty stupid as well. And we go through the canon universe, is what it's called. And who do we see in there? Andrew Garfield in old footage, but he's over Uncle Ben, and it's like, oh my goodness, they're slowly making this into the MCU, and I love it. I love it. And then, of course, we see why Miguel O'Hara is so dark. He tried to save a child, but it did not work. They failed at that. And then we find out in the universe that Miles' dad is going to die within the next 2 days, and that's what causes a bunch of problems. Miles wants to go back. They don't want him to because it will mess up everything. And Miles eventually escapes, and they get on the radio and say, stop that man! And they all point at each other like that very famous meme. They're like, oh, which one? And then all the Spider-Man go after him. Spider-Cat, Spider-Dinosaur. Yeah, it was a wild scene. Then we get to the funniest part of the movie, for me at least. We see a Spider-Man in a therapy office. He's laying down. And then he goes, and then my uncle, and then they show the therapist, also another Spider-Man. He just goes, let me guess. He died, right? And it was like dark, but I know, it was so funny. And so we see Gwen try to web Miles as he's falling. Miles rips it off. Miles wants nothing to do with Gwen. He's made up his mind. He's going home to try and save his dad. Miles fights off Miguel, and Miles is doing pretty good until Miguel tells him, you were never meant to be Spider-Man. And that upsets Miles a lot. Miles is like, no, the spider bit me. It was supposed to be. And then he looks at Gwen and Peter for reassurance, and they know it was an accident too. And Miles is heartbroken, and Miles looks at Gwen like, how could you? And Gwen was like, I didn't know how to tell you it. and that sends Miles unraveling. And Miles, again, just wants to go home to save his dad. Miles sends O'Hara off the ship and says, I'm going home. So Miles gets in the portal to go home, and O'Hara tries to stop him, but Miles is successful. He gets through. And then O'Hara's so mad, he sends Peter home, and he sends Gwen home. So we see Peter's everyday life, and the wife is like, did you take the baby to a fight again? He goes, no, I would never, And we see Gwen go home, and they talk. But Captain Stacy is no longer the captain anymore, so Gwen's family will be safe. And, the father looks defeated. He's down on his luck a little. And then we find out Hobie left Gwen a box to get back whenever she wanted. And her father was like, well, that guy is a character. And he was. So O'Hara and his goons, Miguel, are all looking for Miles. Miles makes it home and everything is okay. Everyone's safe. So we think. Miles tells his mom he's Spider-Man, and she hilariously just doesn't believe it. She's like, oh, at like Comics Con? Comic-Con. And then we realize Miles is in a different universe because his mother is with his Uncle Aaron. And in that universe, Miles' dad is dead. So, wow. We see Gwen go to Miles' house in the real universe, and she tells her parents, I'm going to bring him home. I promise you. Eventually we go back to the fake universe, and Miles is being tied up by Uncle Aaron. And he's like, you don't have to be the Prowler. You don't have to be the Prowler. Like Uncle Aaron was in the first one. He goes, I'm not. And then we find out who the new Prowler is. And it's another variant of Miles Morales. And I was like... And the final scene of the movie, we see Gwen forming a team of old friends from the first one. And they say, we're going to go find Miles. And end of movie. Holy moly. Such a solid movie. 9 out of 10. I enjoyed it. How it was illustrated beautifully. Shot beautifully. Written beautifully. Sony, you ruined the Andrew Garfield saga, but keep sticking to your animated because you're 2 for 2 so far. I enjoyed it thoroughly. 9 out of 10. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you haven't seen the first one, definitely see both. Because I only saw the first one the other day, and I think the second one's better than the first one. I'll say it. Yeah. But this video will be released Friday, June 9th, 7 p.m. Eastern. I will be having my friends Jackie and Zach come on to discuss Flash predictions. So that should be fun. And then my next movie review will be the big one. You can hear Cassie. She's excited too. The Flash is 2 weeks away. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. And yeah. But until then, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you give me a good old subscribe. That helps out a lot. And with that being said, I'm Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, and I'll see you in the next one. Later!